Watching RWBY Volume 6, Chapter 6, and this was a very exciting and depressing episode, but mostly exciting because we haven't had an episode of RWBY like this at all. With that said, obviously this will be spoilers, given the title and everything, you should probably know that, but spoiler alert anyway. Anyways, so there's a few specific things I want to talk about. The new Grimm, a tier list of the characters resolved, and some of the theories regarding Maria Calavera. That's kind of old news, but we can still talk about it, and it's still relevant given the confirmation that she indeed had Silver Eyes at one point. But anyways, we'll get to that part at the end. The first thing I want to talk about is, well, the episode as a whole. I would say it was a very fun episode. Like, it was a 20-minute episode, which is the longest that we've had since Volume 6, Chapter 3, The Lost Fable, which was about 26 minutes, if I recall. So this, the last two chapters were shorter, like 14 and 16 minutes off memory. This one, a good 20-minute episode, but it still flew by. It went really quick. Opened up with the RWBY Rewind scene, but the rest of it was brand new, fresh, and it was pretty much to be as expected. There was some bad stuff that went down. Surprisingly, it didn't go down during their sleep. A lot of us expected Crow to pass out due to his drinking, and indeed he did. But the characters woke up, and for a second I was skeptical. I was like, whoa, is this actually like a dream world they're in? Just for like a minute there, but I'm like, all right, it's obviously not. But let's talk about the new Grimm, the Apathy Grimm. So, definition of apathy, Merriam-Webster definition, lack of interest, enthusiasm, concern. As Maria put it, lack of willpower, or they lost their willpower. Basically, if you lose your willpower, you will have more negative emotions, most likely, especially given the circumstances that Team RWBY was in. Having to stay in the house, or the farm, or whatever you want to call it. There's bodies upstairs, they're having a tough time getting around, just had a train wreck and all that stuff. So it's already like a very negative situation. You have some of the characters specifically being very negative about it more than others. Then on top of that, add the Apathy Grimm all the way at the bottom. This whole herd of Apathy Grimm, crazy stuff. And you can see that losing your willpower would indeed also cause these negative emotions to grow. So honestly, Team RWBY's lucky that more Grimm weren't attracted to them. They're lucky that they got this resolved quickly enough. But it definitely could have been bad. This was maybe one of the closest that our characters had been to actually straight up losing and all of them being X'd off. Luckily, we had Maria there. Really, she was the one that saved everybody. Who knows what would have happened if she wasn't there? Oscar would have been the only one to go down there, if he even got there in time, which probably he wouldn't have. Ozpin seems to still be completely MIA. It seems like Ozpin is just shut out from everything going on right now. I think he's either just like... I feel like he's in a state of meditation, like he's literally locked himself in Oscar's mind, and he doesn't even really know what's going on outside it right now. That's what it seems like, at least. Literally just in his own box, just waiting. Just waiting. Maybe thinking, or maybe not even trying to think about stuff. Could be that too. Could be just a type of meditation where you're just like not thinking about anything, just trying to shut off your senses and all that. Or a type of meditation where he's really trying to think of like how to handle the situation and just kind of like reflecting on everything and if he's made the right decisions and that kind of thing. Either way, it seems like Oz is still not going to be in the show for a while. Who knows? Maybe he'll show up next chapter, but I wouldn't be surprised if he really doesn't come back until more so of the end of this volume, or even this volume. We'll see. So I think the Apathy Grimm are pretty sick. The design, the arms, and the way they're like all creepy probably reminded some people of the Knuckleave Grimm. I know it certainly did for me. And that was a creepy Grimm in itself, but I think the Apathy Grimm were even creepier than Knuckleave, to be honest. Like, they were straight up like zombie looking, like, they look like Resident Evil. They look like freaking regenerators, right? Kinda. And I can't believe how many of them were down there, but I guess it made sense given that it was well, the story was pretty creepy too, the backstory of how they got there. They were spending like too much money on the farm and they were losing money, and they just needed to like kind of cut corners and all that. And that one dude, I'm forgetting his name right now. The one dude like ended up taking two of them. Oh yeah, because they needed to save money on huntsman costs as well, and just like various corners were being cut. So take two of those Grimm, kind of force people's emotions to be lessened, kind of like what Mistral did way back in the past with that decree they issued to remove creativity and all that sort of stuff from their whole kingdom, except for the higher ups. So this was like a very micro level of that kind of manipulation of the people living there. Didn't work out so well. The rest of those Grimm ended up showing up there. Then they sealed him in there, but it was too late. They ended up all losing their willpower, will to survive, and yeah, horrible stuff, honestly. So yeah, it is kind of surprising that more Grimm weren't attracted to the negativity that were spewed to those characters, but at the same time, I guess they weren't just being like entirely negative. The people living on the ranch, I mean, you know, I'm just gonna say it's surprising, to be honest. I'm not gonna try to justify it. It's surprising because they were kind of in a situation where things were getting bad and going worse, and then you have the apathy on top of it. I'm surprised more Grimm weren't attracted to them, and we know that they weren't because the ranch wasn't attacked by, you know, didn't have signs of Grimm really, aside from the Apathy Grimm. You know, I'm talking about like Beowulfs or more of those Manticores or whatever. It's kind of surprising, but who knows how long it was since that they were there. I don't think we really got explanation on that. Regarding the Apathy Grimm, though, I think it was a very interesting like approach that they were more like, very slow. You know, they weren't fast. They were very, very slow. But that screech they have and the aura that they give off of draining willpower, very cool. And you know, there was many different ways they could have taken this. There were so many different like mythological creatures that people were theorizing about for the Brunswick farm, like the Headless Huntsman or the Headless Horseman, some kind of Grimm like that. Other like freaking what's the word? I want to say Sithonian, but that's because I've been playing this game Grim Dawn with like the word I'm looking for. Oh yeah, Lovecraft. There we go. Like the Lovecraft mythos type of creatures and all that stuff. So it was interesting the approach they took, but I think it was pretty good. Now on that note, I made a tier list. In my opinion, this is like a tier list of the resolve of the various people in the group: Team RWBY, Maria, and Oscar and Crow. Before we get into that, let me get a sip of coffee. So, already, before Team RWBY and Co. even got to that ranch, certain characters were already being very negative. Obviously, Yang is at the top of that list. And the way that they were affected by the resolve, the way all these characters were affected in different ways by the resolve, the loss of their willpower, the apathy, it really made it interesting in my opinion, because it really showed who is being positive in this group, who understands really like what's at stake, and who's doing the best to move forward and be mature about it, and understand that even though everyone is suffering in this group, everyone's been through a lot of crap, you need to be positive, you need to have a plan, you need to move forward the best way you can, because everyone's relying on each other. And here is my tier list of best to worst, specifically in terms of resolve. So this is my tier list of resolve. Number 1, Maria. Number 2, RWBY. Number 3, Oscar. Number 4, Blake. Number 5, Crow. Number 6, Weiss. Number 7, Yang. So that's in order from highest resolve to lowest resolve. And I will explain why I put them in that order right now. So Maria is at the top of the list. She did not lose her resolve at all. Even when she went down into the basement and was right next to those Grimm, she still had all her resolve. Even before she knew about RWBY Silver Eyes, she still had all her resolve, was trying to like get them out of there. So Maria seems to have the highest resolve out of the entire group. Following up is RWBY. RWBY also seems to have very high resolve. I would put her in the second place on this list because she kept her resolve, she kept her motivation, you know, her right state of mind the entire time, except when she was down there and everyone was looking like they were gonna lose. Like, she only started to give up hope once everything was pretty much at a loss there. So I'd put RWBY in number 2. Number 3, Oscar. Now, Oscar didn't really seem to have ever lost his resolve, but to be fair to RWBY, Oscar was never like directly underground. Because we see that there's kind of 2 ways that these Grimm use their apathy effects. The one way is it's like a passive aura that everyone around them just kind of feels apathetic and loses their resolve. And number 2 is that direct screech. So I don't think Oscar was ever in that direct screech, like as close as the rest of the group. But that said, he still kept his resolve the entire time. So I would say maybe Oscar and RWBY are equal in resolve. But I'm going to put RWBY a little bit higher just because she was more directly by them and she kept her resolve for most of the time there. Now, that covers Maria, RWBY, and Oscar. The next one is Blake. Blake didn't lose her resolve until chapter 6. Crow, following up after Blake, same reason. He didn't lose his resolve until chapter 6. And it's debatable. Maybe you could switch Blake and Crow around, honestly. So here's the interesting thing about Crow. We have to take into account how depressed he is, right? So before the Ozpin scene, the one where Ozpin was like, I don't have a plan, and Crow got all mad. I'm just going to call it the Ozpin scene. Before the Ozpin scene, it's already reasonable to assume that Crow is a pretty depressed guy given his drinking and the way he acts and stuff. I think pretty much the whole entire RWBY community seems to unanimously agree that Crow feels responsible for what happened to Summer, whether he directly or indirectly was responsible or is responsible. he holds a lot of guilt internally about that and his semblance, and a lot of guilt about other things regarding his semblance as well. So it's reasonable to assume that he's already kind of depressed, hence the drinking, for all those reasons. Then we had the Ozpin scene, which really made him feel like he, wasn't doing any good in the world. That made him even more depressed and want to drink more. Then on top of it, at the ranch, you have Crow actually drinking like more alcohol than we've ever seen him drink. Like, he was 3 bottles deep in the night, plus whatever he was drinking during the day, plus his flask. So the dude was totally, like, basically blackout drunk. He passed out drunk. He was supposed to stay up all morning. He did not do that. I don't think anyone was really surprised about that. Anyone who at least knows how drinking works, some point you get so drunk that you just literally get blackout drunk. Not that I know, obviously. But anyways, so we also have to take into account that alcohol is a depressant. So Crow was already depressed. He had the Ozpin thing, which made him more depressed. Then he had all this alcohol, which is a depressant. So the fact that Crow didn't lose his resolve sooner is actually pretty impressive to me. So maybe I would swap Crow and Blake around there, but that's debatable. So the list so far: Maria, RWBY, Oscar, Blake, Crow. Maybe we could say Oscar and RWBY are pretty close to equal. Maybe we would swap Crow and Blake around, but I think this is pretty accurate, aside from that. Number 6, Weiss. Weiss was affected in Chapter 5. The only other character who was also affected in Chapter 5 was Yang. So Yang and Weiss have the lowest resolve by far. They were affected by far sooner than anybody else in the group. Like I said, they were actually affected last chapter in Chapter 5. Weiss was like, why are we even doing this? Why are we even taking the relic to Atlas? The same exact question she asked in this chapter in Chapter 6, she had already asked in Chapter 5. So that was also a big indicator that something was not right with them in the head. Last chapter, it was indicated that, they were losing, like, something mentally was affecting them. And this chapter confirmed that. Point is, Weiss was affected last chapter, and so was Yang. No one else in the group was noticeably affected, I should say, except Weiss and Yang. And Yang is at the bottom of the list because she's already been very negative before they even got to the ranch. She's already wanted to not do this journey and everything before they even got there. So she was also one of the quickest to be affected by it last chapter. Yang and Weiss were both affected by it last chapter. Again, no other character was. So Yang and Weiss by far the lowest resolved out of the group. I really hope Yang turns around soon. She is the older sister. Like I said, she's been through a lot of bad stuff, but everyone here has. And the point is, you need to work as a group, especially Yang, always trying to be that older sister to protect RWBY. Seems like she's kind of lost that resolve too. I don't know. I hope Yang turns around, but man, all I gotta say is RWBY Rose herself has been getting more and more impressive to me. Like, I get more and more respect for RWBY, especially like Volume 6. Youngest, well, Oscar's the youngest one, but the youngest girl on Team RWBY, let me put it that way. Oscar's not on Team RWBY. I was going to say the youngest out of the whole group. I'm just going to say the second youngest in the whole group and youngest out of Team RWBY. And she seems to constantly be like the most mature, most level-headed out of all of them. So RWBY Rose is just gaining a lot of my respect. I was never like a huge fan of RWBY Rose, to be honest. Like, my best girls were always like Neo, Weiss. Neo and Weiss were like my best girls, honestly. There's other ones that I really like as well, like Raven and such. But Neo and Weiss were always like my best girls. And Weiss is starting to, I don't know, I'm starting to lose hope for her a little bit. Like, not really lose hope, but like, opinions change. And all I'm saying is Weiss is starting to disappoint me more and more as Volume 5 and Volume 6 goes on. Yang was also actually she was pretty close to being a best girl for me, Yang was. I liked her personality, her spunk. I like how she wanted to protect RWBY. But it's like all the things I liked about Yang have been getting thrown out the window throughout Volume 6. Like, she's just like, bum, throwing it away. The additional training with Tai Yang, threw it away. All the good stuff that Tai Yang tried to tell her, and she seemed like she got it resolved. Like in Volume 4, when Volume 4 ended, we had that song. It literally the song that it teased us with at the end of Volume 4 was Armed and Ready. And it made Yang seem like she was, had this new mindset. She knew what her mistakes were, rushing into battle. And the whole song and her attitude and everything made it seem like she was ready to mature and leave behind, like, letting her emotions control her. And throughout Volume 5 and 6, that just has been thrown out the window. So that's why I personally have not liked Yang's development that much. I'm not holding it against her entirely, but the fact is, if I'm going to make a tier list, some of the characters are going to be, higher or lower, and Yang is just continually getting lower. Blake is actually getting higher, and RWBY is actually getting higher than any of them. Freaking RWBY is awesome. Like, I love her. Man, she's doing a really good job. Finally, man, RWBY is getting some, like, leadership and justice and all that sort of stuff, all that good sort of stuff, resolve, and yeah, RWBY's getting very impressive. So with that said, let's move on to the Maria theories. So we find out that Maria indeed had silver eyes this chapter. A lot of different theories for it, and I think pretty much all of them are good. The only one that's horrible and bad is the theory that Maria was kidnapped by Salem's crew. They tortured her and cut her eyes out, and then they let her go. That's just a horrible theory in my opinion, because Salem's crew has shown that they don't have problems killing people before. They've killed countless huntsmen and huntresses. They killed Leo. They killed a bunch of innocent people through the fall of Beacon, and all these other things, right? So they have no problem killing people. So why would they simply, when they have an opportunity to kill one of their greatest threats, one of their greatest enemies, a silver-eyed warrior, why would they just cut her eyes out and then be like, okay, you can go? Like, that's just stupid, honestly. It's just dumb. So that's horrible. Horrible. That's the only theory I don't like. The better theories is that maybe they caught her and were torturing her and killed and removed her eyes, and someone rescued her before she was able to get killed. Like, that would be actually pretty crazy if that was Summer Rose, right? Like, what if Summer went there, somehow Summer got involved and like was able to save Maria, but then Summer got caught and killed or something, or Summer's still alive and they still have her and they're torturing her or something like that. Based off the inspiration that I believe Summer is inspired from, at least one of the inspirations, it would actually point to her being alive and captive and having horrible things done to her, sadly. And that goes back to a theory I made literally like almost 2 years ago, which I really want to redo that theory. I think the video is good and all, but I have a much bigger subscriber base now, and I want that video to get views. So, I mean, I'll put the old one in the description if you guys want to check it out. There's so many connections to this character in Summer Rose that I think it's pretty uncanny and actually pretty likely. But I'll probably make a new version of that theory at some point as well. I've been wanting to do that for a long time. But yeah, link in the description if you want to take a look at that. Summer's Secret Inspiration. Really dope video in my opinion. One of my oldest videos, and one of the ones I'm most proud of, even though it's one of my older ones. And usually those are kind of cringy and like not that good. But anyways, another theory could be that she simply went blind from using the silver eyes too much. Maybe after using the silver eyes too much, you go blind simply from overusing them. Now that could point to two things. Either she was a huntress, so she was in a lot of situations where she used her silver eyes. But also, a very fair counter-argument to that would be, well, she must not have been a huntress then. Maybe she was just a regular person. Because if she was a huntress, she shouldn't have to use her silver eyes so much, you know? A huntress should be able to defend herself without silver eyes. Like, they should just be a good fighter. So, maybe she was a huntress, maybe not. There is definitely arguments for both sides of that. We'll find out, though. So yeah, going blind from using them too much. Another was that she was tortured by a group that wasn't Salem's crew, and they just cut her eyes out for the heck of it, or they knew about silver eyes and they cut her eyes out, and then they let her go, or someone got freed her. Basically the same thing from the captured by Salem's group in Free Theory, except this wasn't Salem's group. It was just like bandits or something. Maybe that happened. So those are like the main theories for Maria Calavera regarding the silver eyes. I mean, there's a lot of other theories regarding Maria and her inspirations regarding the Day of the, Dead and all that. But, I don't want to get into all of that. That's kind of old info that we've all been talking about since like chapter 1 or 2. So all in all, this is not a surprise. Like Maria even said like Maria even said in this episode, like, can you really be surprised? Like they literally show in the intro, like Maria, like going through the goggles into Ruby Silver Eyes. Like it's literally in the intro confirming that she has silver eyes. Not confirming, but this is confirmation, but it's like hinting greatly at it in the intro. Plus the fact that whenever a character in the show has their eyes hidden, everyone's gonna be like, oh, maybe it's a silver-eyed warrior. That's just the way it is. When there's a huge plot point in the show regarding people's eyes, it's just gonna happen that whenever a character has their eyes hidden, people are gonna maybe assume that it's a silver-eyed warrior. So on top of that, plus the intro, it's like, okay, dude, Maria is probably a silver-eyed warrior. Plus their inspirations regarding like seeing the deceased in Summer in that case could be, something with that. It's just too many things pointed to it. It's not really a surprise at all. Oh, and one more thing to take note of, some possible foreshadowing. As Maria finishes reading the journal, she says, and then no one was left. Closes the book and throws it off of the wagon, the cart, or whatever. And we can see the title of that journal entry, or the whole journal, is 8. So perhaps in chapter 8, 2 chapters from now, a group, either Salem's group or Junior or Team RWBY or some group that we don't know yet, will suffer tremendous loss. Or maybe this will occur in Volume 8. Or some chapter 8 in some volume. The point is, keep an eye out for an 8. an 8, an 8. So that really does it for my review of this episode, guys. There's a lot to say regarding the Grimm, the characters, Maria's eyes. And that's really like only 3 main topics I think I talked about. And this video is actually 20 minutes already, so that's crazy. I could probably talk about this for like plenty more time, but I'll save that for my stream, which will be starting in less than 3 hours. So if you watch this video and you'll be around in about 3 hours, be sure you take a look at my channel. I'll be doing a live stream discussion review of this, chatting with you guys in real time. Starts at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time right now. It is 12:20 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So I need to end this, upload it. It's probably gonna take about an hour or so. So I'm on a little bit of a tight schedule. I'm gonna wrap this video up, guys, but thank you so much for your support. If you'd like to sponsor this channel, consider donating directly via either Streamlabs one-time link donation below, or consider sponsoring monthly on Patreon. We have tiers as low as $1 a month, and you get access to my reactions early on that, as well as plenty of other cool perks, depending on which tier you sign up for. Links to that also down below. And with that said, guys, I will catch you in the stream, hopefully, but if not, next time.